All right, let's dive straight into this because the offseason atmosphere around the New York Yankees is starting to feel familiar, but at the same time, slightly different from what fans lived not so long ago. Once again, the Yankees find themselves in a situation where a star outfielder represented by Scott Boras is at the center of attention. And once again, the New York Mets are lurking nearby, ready to pounce if the opportunity presents itself. The name this time is Cody Bellinger, a player whose profile almost feels tailor-made for New York baseball, with power for the left side, defensive excellence across multiple positions, and a resume that speaks for itself. Still, within the Yankees organization, the mood is not one of panic or anxiety. On the contrary, there is a sense of calm confidence that suggests this pursuit will not end the same way the Juan Soto saga did. From the outside, it would be easy to assume that the Yankees should be nervous. After all, they have already lived through the nightmare scenario of watching a superstar walk across town. The memory of Soto choosing the Mets over the Bronx is still fresh in the minds of fans, especially considering how close the Yankees came to keeping him. Yet internally, the feeling appears to be different with Bellinger. The front office believes this situation is unique, both in terms of the player involved and the dynamics of the negotiation. Bellinger is not only valued for his bat, which carries legitimate 30-home run power, but also for his ability to move seamlessly between the outfield and first base, providing roster flexibility that few players in the league can match. That versatility is a major reason why Bellinger fits so naturally into the Yankees' long-term vision. In a lineup that has often felt unbalanced or overly dependent on one superstar, adding a player like Bellinger represents more than just another big name. It represents stability, balance, and protection for Aaron Judge, who has spent too many stretches of his prime carrying an offense on his shoulders. Judge's influence within the clubhouse cannot be ignored here. As team captain, his voice carries weight, and his support for bringing Bellinger back reflects a shared belief that this roster needs more reliable firepower if it wants to avoid the offensive droughts that have haunted the Yankees in recent seasons. What also makes this pursuit so fascinating is how much it contrasts with the Yankees' traditional approach under Hal Steinbrenner during the Judge era. For years, the organization has shown far more willingness to spend heavily on pitching than on elite offensive talent. Massive contracts were handed out to starting pitchers, while impact bats were often bypassed or replaced with stopgap solutions and depth pieces. This philosophy shaped the roster in ways that sometimes left the lineup feeling incomplete, especially when injuries struck. Fans do not need to be reminded how fragile things became during seasons when Judge was sidelined and there was no secondary star capable of picking up the slack. Those decisions culminated in lineups that felt patchwork at best, with players cycling in and out without establishing consistency. It was a period that tested the patience of the fan base and exposed the limitations of relying too heavily on one transcendent player to mask structural flaws. The acquisition of Juan Soto signaled a shift, a recognition that elite bats matter just as much as elite arms. Losing Soto was a blow, but it did not erase the lesson learned. In many ways, the pursuit of Cody Bellinger feels like a continuation of that evolution rather than a reactionary move. Bellinger's recent performance only strengthens that argument. After arriving with questions about whether he could fully recapture his MVP-level form, he answered them with a season that combined power, discipline, and defensive excellence. He provided production in the middle of the order, showed up consistently over a long schedule, and proved he could handle the pressures that come with playing in New York. That matters more than raw statistics, because not every talented player thrives under the spotlight. Bellinger did, and that experience gives the Yankees added confidence that investing in him is a safer bet than many alternatives. Of course, there is still the unavoidable reality of Scott Boras negotiations, which are rarely simple or quick. The Yankees understand that patience will be required and that the price tag will be significant. Yet this time, they appear prepared for that reality, rather than surprised by it. There is also a belief that the Mets, despite their financial power, may not be as strong a threat in this particular case as they were with Soto. Fit matters, and from the Yankees' perspective, Bellinger's role in the Bronx is clearer, more defined, and more aligned with his strengths. At the same time, the Yankees are not operating blindly. They are fully aware of the risks of putting all their eggs in one basket, especially during a competitive offseason where multiple teams are looking to upgrade their lineups. Contingency planning is part of the process, but the priority remains clear. Bellinger is viewed as a cornerstone-type addition, someone who can help reshape the offensive identity of the team while also maintaining defensive excellence across the field. There's also a broader narrative at play here about urgency. The Yankees are not a rebuilding team, and they're not content with simply making the postseason. The window to capitalize on Aaron Judge's prime years is finite, and every offseason carries weight. Standing still is not an option, especially in a division and league that continue to get stronger. Signing Bellinger would be a statement that the Yankees are serious about avoiding the mistakes of the past and committed to surrounding their captain with the level of support required to compete deep into October. As negotiations continue, the atmosphere around the Yankees remains watchful but steady. This is not the frantic scramble of a team caught off guard, but the calculated approach of an organization that believes it knows what it wants and how to get there. The confidence surrounding this pursuit suggests that, unlike previous off-seasons filled with uncertainty and second-guessing, the Yankees feel aligned internally about their direction, even as external pressure and speculation continue to swirl. As this situation continues to unfold, what really stands out is how much the Yankees seem determined not to repeat the same cycle that haunted them just a few seasons ago. There's a clear awareness inside the organization that relying on short-term fixes or hoping internal options suddenly exceed expectations is no longer enough. The league has changed, the competition has intensified, and standing pat often feels like moving backward. That context makes Cody Bellinger more than just a free agent target. He represents a chance to stabilize the lineup with a proven presence who does not need to be shielded or carefully managed to extract value. One of the most compelling aspects of Bellinger's profile is how naturally he fits into different game situations. He is not a one-dimensional slugger who lives and dies by the home run. He works counts, adjusts his approach, and brings an athletic element that allows the Yankees to be more creative with their defensive alignments. Over the course of a long season, those details matter. They reduce wear and tear on the roster and give the coaching staff more options when injuries or slumps inevitably arise. That flexibility is something the Yankees have often lacked when their lineup leaned too heavily towards similar skill sets. There is also the psychological component of continuity. When a player arrives midstream and immediately contributes, it builds trust inside the clubhouse. Teammates see reliability, and that has a ripple effect on preparation and confidence. Bellinger earned that trust quickly, and losing him would mean more than subtracting numbers from a stat sheet. It would mean reopening questions about consistency and identity that the team has worked to quiet. Keeping him signals stability, something the Yankees have not always enjoyed during turbulent off-seasons. Financially, the conversation is unavoidable, but it is also nuanced. The Yankees are fully aware that elite talent comes at a premium, especially when it involves a player entering free agency with leverage and recent success. At the same time, there's a growing recognition that avoiding those contracts has its own cost. Seasons lost to underpowered lineups and early playoff exits carry consequences that extend beyond a single year. Attendance, engagement, and perception all follow performance, and the Yankees brand has always been tied to ambition. Spending wisely does not mean spending timidly. Around the league, rivals are watching closely. The American League is not short on teams willing to push their chips forward, and the margin for error continues to shrink. For the Yankees, adding Bellinger is about keeping pace as much as it is about internal improvement. The front office understands that even marginal gains can be decisive in a postseason environment where one swing or one defensive play can alter an entire series. Bellinger's track record suggests he can be involved in those moments rather than watching from the dugout. Another layer to this story is how it shapes the rest of the roster. When a core piece is secured, it clarifies roles for everyone else. Young players are not forced into responsibilities before they are ready. and veterans can settle into defined expectations. That clarity often translates into better performance across the board. The Yankees have seen what happens when uncertainty lingers too long, and the resulting pressure can fracture focus over the course of a season. From a fan perspective, there is cautious optimism mixed with hard-earned skepticism. Supporters have heard promises before and watched negotiations drag on only to end in disappointment. Yet there is something different in the tone surrounding this pursuit. It feels less reactive and more deliberate, as if lessons have been absorbed rather than ignored. The emphasis is not on headlines or shock value, but on fit, impact, and sustainability. As winter meetings give way to deeper off-season maneuvering, the Yankees remain in a position where patience and conviction must coexist. Rushing a deal for the sake of optics would undermine the entire process, but hesitation born from fear would be just as damaging. Walking that line is the challenge, and so far, the organization appears comfortable doing so. They know what Bellinger brings, they know what the roster lacks without him, and they understand the consequences of missing out. The coming weeks will test that resolve, especially as market dynamics shift and other teams explore their own options. Still, the Yankees' approach suggests they're prepared for that turbulence. Rather than chasing every rumor or reacting to every development, they're focused on a specific outcome that aligns with their competitive timeline. That focus is what gives this pursuit weight and why it continues to feel like a defining moment in how the franchise intends to move forward. What also deserves attention is how this negotiation reflects a broader shift in how the Yankees are evaluating risk versus reward. For a long time, the organization leaned on the idea that depth and development could compensate for the absence of another elite bat next to Aaron Judge. In theory, that approach sounds reasonable, but in practice it exposed the lineup whenever things did not break perfectly. Slumps became magnified, opposing pitchers could game plan more easily, and the margin for error shrank dramatically. Bellinger changes that dynamic because he forces opponents to make choices rather than cruise through predictable matchups. There is a tactical benefit as well. A left-handed hitter with power and plate awareness alters how games are managed late. It impacts bullpen decisions, pinch hitting strategies, and defensive shifts. Those chess match elements are often what separate good teams from great ones over a full season. The Yankees have felt that difference on the wrong side more than once, watching opposing managers exploit weaknesses that lingered too long. Adding Bellinger is not about star chasing. It is about eliminating exploitable gaps. Another factor quietly working in the Yankees' favor is familiarity. Bellinger already understands the expectations, the daily scrutiny, and the rhythm of playing in the Bronx. That learning curve can derail even talented players, especially early in the season when narratives form quickly. Removing that adjustment period has real value, even if it does not show up cleanly in projections. Comfort breeds consistency, and consistency is something the Yankees have often lacked outside of their capital. But before we continue, please remember to join our channel and give this video a like. Your support allows us to keep bringing you the latest news about the New York Yankees. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments. The whispers started quietly, almost like background noise in the corridors of baseball circles, but they are growing louder by the hour. Inside the New York Yankees universe, a new name is being spoken with a mix of excitement and caution. Spencer Jones. To some, it sounds premature. To others, it sounds inevitable. The boldest voices are already calling him the new Judge, a comparison that carries both promise and pressure in the Bronx. Jones fits the physical mold that Yankees fans have learned to dream about. Tall, powerful, left-handed at the plate, with long strides in the outfield that seem to swallow ground with ease. Scouts have long admired his raw power, the kind that doesn't need perfect contact to send the ball deep. When he squares it up, the sound alone turns heads. It is exactly the type of presence the Yankees traditionally value. A player who looks like he was built for the big stage and brighter lights. The speculation isn't just about tools, though. Insiders suggest that the organization sees something deeper in Jones' composure. The ability to slow the game down. The willingness to learn. In a market that devours young players who aren't mentally prepared, that detail matters. The Yankees, always thinking in terms of legacy, appear intrigued by the idea of grooming another towering figure who could one day anchor the lineup and become a face of the franchise. Of course, comparisons to Aaron Judge are dangerous. Judge is not just a player, he is a symbol. Expecting anyone to replicate that impact is unfair. Still, baseball thrives on mythology, and New York more than any other city loves the idea of succession. The notion that the Yankees could unveil another imposing outfielder with thunder in his bat is irresistible to fans hungry for the next chapter. For now, nothing is official. No announcements, no guarantees. Just a rumor traveling fast through dugouts, offices, and social media timelines. But in baseball, rumors often reveal desires before they reveal facts. And the desire here is clear. The Yankees may believe that Spencer Jones could be more than just a prospect. He could be the next big thing. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the New York Yankees, please subscribe to our channel and give us a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.